How we doing, everybody? Happy Saturday. So I just wanted to give you my little 2 cents on Ant-Man and the Wasp. I was really looking forward to this movie, especially after my love for the first one. And a lot of people said that it was better than the first one. So I guess my expectations were maybe a little bit too high, because I didn't agree. I didn't agree that it was better than the first one. Although I do and did love all the Wasp stuff. Having her in it and having her do her thing. I've always been a big Wasp fan. Of course, I didn't know I think the Hope Van Dyne thing is just for the movie. But Janet Van Dyne, I've always been a big fan of hers, you know, from the Avengers, from the early days in the Avengers. But the movie itself, it stars, of course, Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly, who never gives a bad performance. I've loved everything that she's done ever since Lost, and then The Hobbit. She's just great. And Steel, she was even great in Steel. She had a smaller part in that. And, you know, she's just amazing. And now we also have Michael Douglas having a larger role, which is great. I'm glad he does have a larger role in that. And Michelle Pfeiffer, you know, has her more of a bit part in this. Randall Park from there's a pile of stuff, but what I love him in is of course the Fresh Off the Boat with him and Constance Wu. But Randall Park jumps back and forth between big screen and small screen. And even now, Constance Wu, which is his partner in Fresh Off the Boat, she's got a film coming out as well called Rich Asians or something to that effect. So it's great that they're, you know, jumping back and forth. They're both great talents as well. Lawrence Fishburne joins the cast. I'll talk more about him in the spoiler section. And Hannah Jo Kamen, who I didn't realize until I had to look it up that she is the head of Killjoys. She's the main actress in Killjoys, which is the sci-fi show, and she's great in that. I didn't even correlate the two because I don't know if she just looked completely different or what, but maybe it was the acting, but she looked and acted completely different than she did in that show, so I didn't even correlate the two. Judy Greer and Bobby Cannavale, however you say it, are back playing Cassie's mom, which is Paul Rudd's ex, and Bobby, who normally plays villains. He played a villain in the last Rock movie. I have Jurassic Park in my head, but that's not it. But it'll come to me. But anyway, he played the villain in that. And he comes off as a villain, so it's great to see him play a good guy. I'm glad they brought Michael Pena back. He's always a highlight of this franchise, especially when in the first one they made him, you know, his voice is mouthing through everybody else's, covering everybody else's dialogue with his dialogue. So that's just great. So anyway, the cast is great. No issue with the cast. It's amazing. The acting was all great. The action was good. So what is my reluctance here with it not being better than the first one? So it's a couple of things, and a lot of things I cannot reveal without doing, you know, spoilers. But I think the pacing was, I don't think the pacing worked. And in my opinion, the beginning introduction of Wasp is probably the best scene in the whole movie. Which is bad when, you know, you have this and then it just kind of does this. Again, the movie was good. Don't get me wrong, it was good, but not great. And I think that it had the ability of being great, but it wasn't great. And I think part of it was the fact that, besides the pacing side of things, because it was kind of convoluted, I think that the plot was a little bit convoluted. There was just a lot of things going on instead of being more laser-sighted. Like the first one was pretty laser-sighted. So you had, Paul Rudd's character, Scott, trying to get his life back, get his kid back, etc. And he ends up falling into, being a superhero. And then he gets introduced to Hank Pym and his daughter, and they go fight a bad guy. I mean, that's pretty much what the thing was, and the bad guy was trying to steal the technology and, basically be a bad guy. So it was almost very similar to Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie. Which works, it works. It's maybe a little bit derivative, but it works. Where here, it was just a whole bunch of different pieces shoved together, I thought. And I don't know if Marvel is shying away now from trying to create a bad guy, where now it's, they're afraid of the trope of having, a villain who's just a villain just for the hell of it. But, I mean, the two most memorable, if you look on the internet, if you look at the top villains in history, two of the top villains in history, if you want to, I can even name three. Darth Vader, I think, is number one. The Wicked Witch of the West, and I think even Hannibal is in there from Silence of the Lambs. So, we're talking about people that are generally evil. They have their own motivations and stuff like that, but we have somebody that's evil. And this film just doesn't have that. So again, I'll deal with that a little bit more in the spoilers, but I think that's part of the problem too, is that the stakes, I don't know, I just didn't feel the stakes. They threw a ticking time clock in there, and I don't know if that worked, but anyway, so the whole world of Ant-Man and Wasp is great. They can shrink buildings, they can shrink. So I think they take it a little bit too far. With the shrinking stuff. The shrinking of the building was, a little bit. And you see the trailer too, where he takes it almost like a carry case, a piece of luggage with a handle. So it's meant to be funny. It doesn't take itself seriously. But maybe it's gone just a little bit too far. I'm not sure. But it definitely was not as good as the first one, in my opinion. So they did tie it into Infinity War, and again, I'll go through this more in spoiler, but they did try to tie it in, and I had a little problem with that too, because if it does get tied in with Infinity War, there's been no reports on the stuff that's been going on. I know that Wakanda is, covered, but what about the stuff that happened in England and stuff like that? There was no reports about, Wanda and the Vision, any of that stuff. There was no security cameras on any of that stuff. And I find that hard to believe too. So they did tie it in, but I had a problem with the tie-in. So anyway, we'll discuss all that in spoilers. So it's kind of hard for me to discuss, finer points of what my problems were with the film without going into spoilers. So in generalities, and in comparison to what you see on the in the trailer, it was a fun movie. It was fun. I don't think I laughed out loud as much as I did in the first one. It was more like heh heh, that kind of thing. There were some scenes that were good, you smiling, but it didn't have that same emotional rush, I think, that the first one did. And the rooting for the underdog and things to that effect that we really got in the first one. So I'm going to move into spoilers now, but I'm going to give my quick rating. and I think that my rating is 7.5. So, you know, my average is more around 6 if it's just plain average. So it's slightly above average. Definitely enjoyable. There were plenty of kids in the theater, so apparently parents thought it was good enough for the kids to see, even younger kids. So and I mean, there were some couple of curse words, but other than that, I didn't see anything that was beyond what kids could see. But anyway, let's jump into spoilers, and I do recommend seeing it. I saw it in like IMAX. You know, so it's definitely worth seeing in the theater, especially with all the Marvel stuff and tie-ins, etc. like that. That you're looking to, you know, stay abreast of, especially with the next Infinity War. So definitely worth seeing. And let's get into spoilers. Okay, we're getting into spoilers for Ant-Man and the Wasp. So, again, let me just say that the film was enjoyable, but I didn't walk out of there like I did with the first one, was saying, "Oh, it was great." Oh, you know, and maybe we had such low expectations for the first one because an Ant-Man movie. I mean, when I was reading comics as a kid, I'm like, I don't think I've ever said once, "I can't wait for them to make a Ant-Man movie." It was just, he's such a smaller string character that you know, nobody even really even thought about him. You know, I bought a couple of his comics that were, you know, solo, but you know, he was always just in the Avengers. It was more the Wasp that was more. That's why to bring in a Wasp after Ant-Man it was kind of backwards, but it worked. It really worked for bringing him in. But anyway, and all of her scenes, like I said, her first fight scene in the restaurant meeting with Walter Goggins, which is funny because he was also the villain in Tomb Raider, and now he's the villain in this. But he's not really a villain. I don't know. He was kind of the nuisance more than the villain. I don't know. He would just pop up, and his people would pop up just for them to be able to have fight scenes. His storyline was non-existent. It didn't need to be there. And all it was to create fight scenes. That's it. And then the whole truth serum thing that allowed Michael Peña's character to once again do the voiceover stuff with the mouth, that was probably the funniest scene in the movie, was that scene with him doing the voiceover. And I'm glad they threw that in there. But again, that was Walter Goggins' character's only real contribution to the film, other than these chase scenes that happened. And you know, his name was Sonny Birch in the movie. So again, but the whole real storyline here was about Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne. And I wonder, I can't remember why that she had a different last name than him, but her whole point of the film was to try to get the mom out of the quantum realm. Which then they even got really weird with it, saying, "Oh, she's able to touch, you know, his mind because they were both in there together." I don't know how that works. I'm a little confused by all that, and there was no real explanation other than they shared the space together, so now they're mentally connected. I don't know, I didn't buy that. I thought that was really pushing the envelope as far as having, you know, plot points. And then Ghost, so she should have been the villain, right? She's watermarked as the villain in the trailer and on the poster and everything else. She looks like a villain. I think the costume was great. And no, she's not a villain. She's falling out of phase. So she's always in pain. So she's trying to have the mother come back so she can steal her energy and put her back into phase. again, didn't buy any of that. I was rather just have a villain, just have a bad villain rather than she had to have this motivation. Just didn't. A lot of that didn't work for me. Obviously, it worked for a lot of people. Just none of that worked for me. You know, and then they see, you know, when they go to the lab to try to get their tiny lab back, and they look over and she's not in the thing anymore, and she's like, oh shit. I was all good, and I'm waiting, you know, to create this villain, and instead they get this whiny, yeah, I don't know, this whiny girl who's like, oh, I'm always in pain, yeah, I'm gonna kill everybody. It just didn't work. It just didn't work. So, and that's what I mean when I say that it wasn't as good as the first, because the stakes were higher. Then, like I said, they threw in this ticking clock where, oh, if we don't do it find her within the next 2 hours, then we're not going to be able to do it again for like 1,000 years or whatever the number was. I'm like, so you just accidentally happened to do it right now where you had this window? I mean, I can understand the movement thing, but why didn't they just do the same thing over again and re-pinpoint her? But no, there was a time limit where they just couldn't attempt it again, and I didn't get that. The things I liked about it. Okay, let's go into the scenes I liked. So, the little scene in the beginning with, you know, him and the daughter going through the little maze. It was endearing. I like that. It showed basically that he was, even though he was under house arrest, which followed up from Civil War, that, you know, he was able to get his daughter back for the most part. Great. So we had a little bit of, you know, completion of Civil War. And then we move on to that scene that I love in the restaurant where she tries to buy the component from Walter Coggins' character. And that was awesome. That was just awesome with her, you know, growing and shrinking and flying, and that was all great. And then she ended up fighting Ghost, and that was, you know, a problem. So all that was really, really good. And again, that's where it kind of goes downhill after that. So now we're kind of going, we have this thing with this whole thing with him and Hank Pym and Scott. All three of them have now combined forces to try to get the mother out, and they end up meeting Lawrence Fishburne because they don't have the component, so they have to figure out another way to get to the mother, and he comes up with, you know, trying to change the regulator and stuff like that. And then, of course, it reveals that Lawrence Fishburne is in league and trying to help Ghost. And this is where it gets more convoluted. So you have that storyline going on. Then you have this nuisance of Walter Goggins' character and all of his henchmen trying to get the lab so he can sell it. And again, that had absolutely no bearing on anything besides the fact that these people would show up and cause trouble. And then, of course, while they're doing this whole big chase, also, you know, you would think that with all the rattling and everything else they do with this building, everything would shift around quite a bit. Nothing would stay on, you know, the tables, and, you know, they'd be picking up stuff forever. And why do they need a whole building? I don't know. So anyway, now they go in. You know, he's getting chased by the FBI, which is yet another storyline where he's getting chased by the FBI, and he has to continually go back home. Although the big ant with the ankle bracelet on was funny. So, and then we kind of go into the ending where now Hank Pym is taking that little shuttle into the quantum realm, and he ends up finding Janet. And then they come back. And yay, the whole thing grows, the whole building grows, and we have the whole last thing with Ghost. Okay. Again, when you see that there's really no besides a little time thing that they put on there, there really was no big stakes. So either they're going to save the mother or they weren't, you know. Although her speaking through Paul Rudd did a really good job of pretending to be Michelle Pfeiffer. I thought that was funny. And then, you know, we had the post-credit where we now see what's happening with Infinity War. And again, did they not know what's going on with the rest of the Avengers? Did they not see any kind of fight in New York with, you know, with Thanos' guys against Doctor Strange and Iron Man? That was not on any news channels whatsoever where he would have reached out. I find it hard to believe. But anyway, he's now stuck in the quantum realm because I guess they continually have to get energy for Ghost to stay solid. So, and as we see, the things are falling, and we know that the rest of the group outside of him are all subject to Thanos' plan. So they don't exist anymore either. So that's, which is great that they tied that in. I like that they tied it in, but I don't like if they did tie it in, that they did not explain that they knew something was going on. They just had enough to deal with without getting involved. But anyway, so that was that's my review of Ant-Man Wasp. I think that the characters are great. I just don't think the storyline was executed very well, and that's kind of my 2 cents there. Anyway, so I don't know what's coming out in the future. I'm starting a film for the next few weeks. So it's going to be hit and miss. But oh, we have I guess we have Mission Impossible coming out. So I'll try to get to that. I'm not working on the weekend, so I should be able to do another video. All right. So anyway, go see it and comment below and let me know what your thoughts were. And also on top of that, make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, and share this video. All right. Have a great one. Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.